Coober Pedy, that's a Coober with a B, not a P, is a town of opal miners and machines. As nothing else much withstands one of Australia's hottest places with a record of just over 47 degrees Celsius. It's filled with memories of past glories and the next big find. To live here, you need to be prepared to spend not just your working time, but leisure time underground to shelter from the unimaginable heat, dust and wind. The name Coober Pedy comes from the local Aborigine term Coober Pedy, which means boy's waterhole. As we leave this moonlight panorama behind, we make our way to William Creek and hopefully see some water in Lake Eyre.
This is the Oodnadatta track heading into William Creek.
You don't seem to forget about yourself. Wondering how it could go so wrong, but you didn't call for help.
What a tragic story. In brief, in December 1998, an international tourist perished along the Halligan Bay track. Carrawina and her partner became bogged, and after 2 days stuck made the decision to leave the vehicle and walk back to William Creek. This monument was erected in memory of her and a warning to other travellers how unforgiving this environment can be.
So here's a reminder to look at life that's pouring into you. And so my friend, let me tell you once again, and you know that it's true.
Next is a quick stop in to check out Coward Springs and the Burbler Ponds. Wow, is this place amazing. This would be a great spot to hold up for a few days to rest those travelling bones. Just 6 k's up the track is the Burbler and Blanche Cup. These attractions are both excellent examples of natural artesian springs. The Wamakabu Conservation Park was established in 1996, with additional areas added to the park in 2000, and prior to 1996, the land was part of the Stewart Creek Pastoral Lease. Whilst the condition of the track is not that bad by my standards, you do need to keep an eye out for washouts like this, as they will sneak up on you. The views from the southern end of Lake Eyre are stunning. Water is clearly visible in the distance as we're much closer. It was great to be here and actually see water in it. We arrive into Marree mid-afternoon. This gives us time to set up the tent and to have a poke around town. This quaint little town is at the junction where the Oodnadatta and Strzelecki tracks intersect. The town slowed down when they closed the rail line in 1980 and now rely on tourists and travellers to keep the town alive. It's quite eerie to see the unused station and train tracks that lead nowhere. This old truck, driven by its owner, the well-known Tom Cruise, spent many a day bouncing and struggling up the Birdsville track between Marree and Birdsville. I think it's time for a bit of an update on where we've been and where we're headed. We left Alice Springs and travelled to Fink. From there through Hamilton Station to the Oodnadatta track, across to Carrawina through the Painted Desert and down to Coober Pedy, to find ourselves now parked up behind the pub at Marree. From here we visit the Farina ruins, then turn off at Lyndhurst, head up the Strzelecki track to Innamincka, where hopefully we'll make camp tonight. Welcome to Farina. Farina started as a well, sunk by the South Australian government near a scrubby patch of eucalypts in the 1870s, and the place was originally named Government Gums. In 1876, a couple of city surveyors with big ideas rode their camels to Government Gums. They divvied up the land in a series of rectangles for terraced housing and shops, with areas set aside for belts of parklands. The result was 432 quarter-acre allotments, optimistic to say the least. The building of the town was slow, and people lived in tents for some time, similar to what we do out there now. It was believed that it would be good for growing wheat and barley. However, normal rainfall is nowhere near enough to grow these crops. Several silver and copper mines were dug in the nearby area, which brought more people, Chinese, Germans and other Europeans. The Great Northern Railway arrived in 1882, making Farina the last stop. From here, the Cameleers would transport supplies to remote stations and outposts as far away as South Western Queensland. Construction of the rail line continued north, eventually reaching Alice Springs in 1929, and Farina became the place where the line switched from narrow to standard gauge. By the time the railway arrived, the town had been renamed Farina, meaning flour in Latin, echoing hopes that wheat farming would become an important industry. Afghan cameleers whose camel trains carried goods and stores to distant stations and outposts set up home in the town. There were 2 hotels, the Transcontinental and the Exchange, a school, a post office, bank, a brewery and several stores. At its height in the 1890s, 600 people lived in Farina. Today it's hard to imagine looking around at the Gibbler Plain and the red dirt. A visit to the cemetery tells us this was not an easy life. The passage of 2 world wars and expansion of the railway line saw people drift away from Farina over the next 50 years. The school closed in 1957 and the post office in 1960. In 67, the store shut its doors for the last time, whilst the final permanent residents departed in the early 1980s, although the pastoralist at the Farina station stayed on. The railway line was closed and moved further west in 1980. By early 2000, Farina was marked as just ruins on the map. It's not long and we reach Lyndhurst and the start of the Streslecki track. This 475 kilometre track stretches from Lyndhurst in the south to Innamincka in the north. It is pretty well maintained these days to cater for the transport needs of the Moomba oil and gas fields. It's not long and the hunger worms start to take hold, and around mid-morning and we're looking for somewhere to pull off for a break and morning tea. We always fill a thermos in the morning and make time for periodic breaks throughout the day, especially when we have days with big Ks.
Morning tea stop, you're right my way. Back on the Streslecki track.
Welcome to Moomba. This is a company town operated by Santos Limited that was established in the 1960s after the discovery of oil and gas in this region.
This is the Streslecki crossing where the Streslecki Creek crosses the road. Where the road crosses the Streslecki Creek.
We established camp on the banks of the Coober Creek, just inside the reserve. It didn't click at the time, but there was a ranger at the entrance checking permits. When asked if this was normal, he explained that the punters had all left the Birdsville races, and the Birdsville track was only passable by using the barge, one vehicle at a time. The time to get across was measured in days, not hours, so a lot of the southbound traffic had elected to drive to Innamincka and down the Strzelecki track instead, and he was there to stop the people who were trying to camp in the reserve without permits. We were to find out the real ramifications of this the following day when we attempted to refuel. Flock after flock, the pelicans continue to fly past like squadrons of planes on a bombing run. Here we are on the banks of the Carrawina. Take two now. Here we are on the banks of the Carrawina waterhole. You don't know how hard it is to say that. What a magnificent place. It's on the banks of the Coober Creek. We called in late yesterday afternoon. Just been constant flow of pelicans, cormorants, eaglets, lots and lots of other bird life, fish jumping, fantastic place. So today we're going to do a little bit of backtracking. We're going from Innamincka. We'll eventually end up at Innamincka. We're going to look at Burke's grave, Will's grave, the dig tree probably for lunch, and then arrive at Innamincka this evening. But this is something special. There's just so much going on at this place, you don't know where to point the camera. This is the site under a shady coolabah tree that one of our greatest explorers spent his final hours and eventually passed away. Robert O'Hara Burke, his words, "I will cross Australia or perish," would come back to bite him on the arse. You can see what we mean about getting fuel. Well, after lining up for some time, we realised that we're in the diesel line. Bugger. We moved to the petrol line and got our fuel in a matter of minutes, and we were on our way.
This is Coober Creek floodplain. Running through the centre is Cooper's Creek.
The Burke and Wills Dig Tree is situated on the banks of Cooper's Creek. It's associated with the explorers Robert O'Hare Burke and William John Wills. The tree was blazed in April 1861 by William Bray and his party, who had remained at Cooper's Creek while Burke, Wills and their parties forged ahead to the northern coast of Australia. Bray's party was finally forced to abandon the depot and trek homewards, leaving a message that said "dig" in the tree, pointing to the cache of hidden stores. Well, here we are at the Kundra. Arrived this afternoon into the Kundra Hotel and have a quick refreshment over at campgrounds beside the Wilson River. Lovely spot, so there'll be a bit of footage of that. Tomorrow we head through to Carrawina National Park. As you can see, I have trouble with my national park names. Today, we make our way to the Carrawina National Park. This is one of Queensland's largest parks. The lakes, rivers and wetlands are a striking contrast to the sandy plains and rocky ranges of the semi-arid southwestern part of Queensland.
Oh, fuck. Pardon me. You're going to have to dub that.
I am.
You did say they're all over.
All over the place. Lined with coolabah and river red gums, the iconic Paroo River meanders through the park. This 600 kilometre long river is the last free-flowing river in the entire Murray-Darling Basin. The entire landscape holds significant cultural heritage for the traditional owners, the Bridgidi people. Evidence of thousands of years of Aboriginal occupation and more recent relics of pastoral activities dating from the 1860s are scattered across the park. We chose to camp on the banks of the waterhole behind the Carrawina woolshed. Here we found a nice quiet flat spot to set up the tent and bunker down for the night. These are the woolsheds at the Carrawina National Park. Just at the front of the campgrounds, and you drive down the track down to the lagoons where we've been staying. I dare say there's some swearing and sweat happened in there over the years. You can actually stay in the hostels with a group. So probably coach tours and things might use these. Some of the yards that the sheep used to be run into. Don't know what this is, but I can only imagine it's probably what they used to lift the wool bales with to put it on the trailer. Quite a bit of leverage on a swivel. So today we leave this part of the world and head on to Nindy Gully, take us through Cunnamulla, St George and destination Nindy Gully tonight. Our last night was to be spent at Nindy Gully, in front of this iconic pub. I guess it's not a bad place for your last night before you head home. It's leaving Nindy Gully to head back to Brisbane. As we leave the bush behind, it continues to remind us of what we are leaving behind and inspires us to start planning the next trip. Thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and maybe subscribe. Cheers for now, stay safe and don't let the dust settle.